All right, welcome back to the Central Valley Buzz, everybody. I'm your host, Chuck Leonard. Remember this, that every day in November, we're giving away free food from Ginza Asian Bistro. How do you win it? How? You go to Facebook, you go to Chuck Leonard's Central Valley Buzz page, and you like it. And every day you can see some of the great gifts we're giving away, like the Ginza Asian Bistro. $15 a day is pretty good. And the bicycles from Sunnyside Bicycles and ice skates from Gateway Ice Center and many other things. So make sure you like the page and keep watching the show. Billy, let's bring in Michael Bogart. Michael, hello, sir. How are you? Chuck. Nice to see you. So we go from dead rats to Jesus. Is that it?
Well, you know, this is called a variety show, isn't it?
Yes. So Michael Bogart, 21st Century Faith, who did you bring with you today?
This is my grandson, my oldest grandson, McKinley, and so he's here off school for the day.
Excellent. Good for you. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you know, it's Thanksgiving.
Yes. Now, that's not a religious holiday.
Not necessarily, although some people have a lot of religious overtones with it. It's a national holiday, both in the United States and Canada.
Right.
Canada has theirs, I believe it's the first Monday,
in October.
Second Monday of October, something
right.
like that, yeah.
Right.
And of course, we're the fourth Thursday in November.
Didn't it used to be the third Thursday? Did someone change it on me?
I know that President Lincoln sort of mandated it as an official national holiday back during, you know, the 1860s, but I think it was President Roosevelt that kind of put it in its present form as we have it today.
Which Roosevelt?
I think it was Franklin.
Oh.
Yeah. That's right. There were two.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what's your take on Thanksgiving?
Well, you know, Thanksgiving has really been elaborated over the years. It started off, in fact, if I understand this correctly, there were several feasts mandated in what Christians call the Old Testament section of the Bible. And one of them we call tabernacles. In Hebrew, it's Sukkot. It's the commemoration of when the Israelites were in the wilderness during that time out of Egypt. And then they celebrated by living in booths and commemorating how God took care of them in the wilderness. Well, of course, you know, the Christians picked up on that, and then when the Pilgrims or the Puritans got to the New World and they were spared during that first winter of 1620, they decided to kind of go back to the Old Testament, pull out a biblical feast, and then kind of change it for their own purposes, and hence the first Thanksgiving.
Are you sure that's what happened and you're not just kind of reading into it that way?
Well, no, we know that the Puritans were very familiar with the Old Testament. They conceived of themselves.
The Puritans, there are, what would they be today?
The Puritans would be, the Congregationalists would be coming from them. Some other kinds of evangelical churches would have a tie with them. They were dissenters from the Church of England back in the 1600s.
Okay.
So in other words, if you lived in England, you needed to be Anglican. They were the ones that dissented from that policy.
So you're saying that they go back to the Old Testament and go back to what the Jews were doing. You said 12 a year. I'm thinking probably once a month. They have a big feast, right?
No, there's record from Winslow, who was one of the first Puritans in New England, that said that they had this feast in 1621 to thank God for preserving them through that first year. That's where all the stories about the Native Americans coming along and so forth. It was a very simple celebration then. Of course, we've elaborated it much since then.
Were the Native Americans, were they invited to the Thanksgiving feast?
According to Winslow's account, they were, yes. William Winslow, I believe. Yeah.
How things change.
Yeah. Things were a lot different back those days. They needed each other in those days. So.
Okay, so before we get going, you want to talk about your books and your CDs, right?
Right.
Or DVDs.
Yes. Well, as you know, I've said many times on the show, I have a series of religious DVDs and books that are non-biased and very concise. And what we'd like to do is a special today on Thanksgiving for the first person that calls in. I'm going to be giving away my newest DVD called The 45-Minute Bible, which is just an overview based on facts. I try not to spin it too much, even though I am a Christian. And so I'll be giving this to the person that emails in to Mike at aspectministries.com. So.
Mike at aspectministries.com,
right.
And they can get the 45-minute Bible, which is pretty good because it'd probably take you about 45 days to read it if you wanted to get through it, right?
It's a long read. And to a lot of people who are not sure they want to get into it, this is really a good introduction to the subject. I divide the Bible into 8 sections, 4 for what Christians call the Old Testament, 4 for the New. I give a little bit of the controversial issues that surround the Bible today, and talk about whether I think it's relevant for the 21st century and why. So you get a lot in 45 minutes there.
Awesome. Michael Bogart, always good to see you. Happy Thanksgiving, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Chuck.
Nice to have you on. You too.
Thanksgiving.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back on The Buzz. Stick around.